Hello and welcome to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. This week our guest is a professor and the Department Chair of Criminology at Metro State University and the co-founder of the Violence Prevention Project Research Center at Hamline University, James Densley. Remember, we love taking your questions, so write to politicswarroom@gmail.com for next week's show. We're going to get to as many as we can, but don't forget to tell us where you're from. You also can get text updates about what's next for Politicon and Politics War Room by signing up at Politicon.com. So tell your friends about us, remind them to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please check out the link to our sponsors, Webroot and Quince, in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting these sponsors. It really helps make this podcast happen. Hey, James, every now and then a bombshell story rocks Washington. Usually it's written by Bob Woodward. This week it was Vanity Fair's Chris Whipple and the 11 months of conversations with White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, supposedly the most discreet person in the White House, the Ice Queen. Whatever, it was devastating for Trump. She acknowledges in those interviews that some of those indictments that they're seeking against people they don't like were retribution campaigns. What a gift for defense lawyers. The ineptitude of the Justice Department and the Attorney General come through. Elon Musk is a drug user. J.D. Vance, a shapeshifter, conspiracy guy. Trump acts like an alcoholic. He doesn't drink, but he has that kind of personality. He's lying. Basically about Venezuela. He's not going there for drugs, according to Susie Wiles. He's going there for regime change. And he lied when he said they had proof that Bill Clinton had visited Jeffrey Epstein's island. I think he said 28 times. Now, I think what Wiles did was tell the truth, basically, which is uncommon in this administration. And now I think they're getting in trouble, James, because they're trying to madly claim it was a hit piece. They can't claim a single quote that was wrong, a single observation that was wrong. And when they tried one, Whipple played the tape to the New York Times, and it was exactly what he wrote. So the question then is two questions. Number one, can she last? I think the answer to that is clearly yes, if she wants to. And the other question is, why'd she do it? It probably takes someone with a deeper understanding of psychology than me. I think clearly she liked the idea of setting the record straight once she got comfortable with Whipple. And there just must be something, however loyal she is, to realize the kind of bad controlling person that you're working for, and it's important to get that word out. That's beyond my pay grade, but I don't have any better explanation, James.
Well, look at who Chris Whipple is. And he'd written a book on it. I have not read it, but it was well reviewed and highly thought of on White House Chiefs of Staff. And Whipple says that Baker and Panetta are the gold standard. That's what Whipple says. So he calls her to work on this piece. This is his specialty. And, she wants to, when she knows she's part of a failed administration, she knows how crazy she is. And like all people do, it's not my fault. Don't blame me. All right. I tried to tell her, but it couldn't control it. So she's talking to history, and she got wrapped up in it. And I suspect Whipple was very sympathetic and just let the tape roll. 11 different interviews she gave. Understand? 11. And this is what people do generally in the last 3 months of a presidency that they don't think is going very well. Well,
or when they're about to leave, which I don't think she is.
Right. She was talking to history, she thought. And he just let it go. And I'm sure he acted very sympathetic because he couldn't afford a wood and couldn't believe the shit he was getting on tape. But when I say this administration has failed. Okay. The first phase of this operation was that they would become so patently unpopular, no one wanted anything to do with it. Last night, let me give you some more evidence. There was a state Senate open seat in Jessamine County, Louisville, Kentucky, in a district that Harris won, the state Senate district that Harris won by 6. the Democrat won by 50. Okay? Because if you need, it's coming in from everywhere. All right? It doesn't matter. Kentucky, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, Florida, California, New Jersey, Virginia, you name 50. And this is going to continue. And
I don't have any doubt about that. I want to go back, though, for a minute to the Vanity Fair piece. It was not just Wiles that participated, James. I mean, Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and others were in there, too. They took that dreadful picture, all sitting around a table, not looking particularly happy. I'm sure Whipple, as Bob Woodward often does, was able to make a compelling case as to why this will be good for you. But he's a respected journalist, and they all cooperated. And the only one that really revealed a lot, I think, from what I've read, was Susie Wiles. But the others aren't innocents here.
we got 3 years to go of this massive failure. You're going to see more and more of this. Just today, 4 Republicans broke off to bring up the subsidy vote on the House floor. No one cares about Trump anymore. They're not scared of him anymore. His presidency, other than the legal power he has granted to him by the Constitution, it's over. No one gives a fuck about him. No one is scared of him. Okay? The only people that are scared of people like us that think he gets caught in World War III. But there's no fear left. And it's easing out about a minute.
Is and look, it is no surprise to most of us that he lies all the time. The fact that you have his trusted chief of staff, his most trusted aide, maybe his only trusted aide, acknowledging he lies. So therefore, when you get those commentators on CNN and on Fox saying it's not. I mean, we have proof. He lies about Venezuela. He lies about Bill Clinton. He lies about retribution. He lies about everything, and I don't think it's that we learn so much new from those acknowledgments, those confessions, whatever one calls them. But I do think that it just makes it crystal clear what this is all about. And I thought Whipple did a terrific job. Never met Chris Whipple. I thought he did a terrific job.
I've seen. I tell you what, he's enjoying himself. Seen him on TV 100 times.
I saw him. I saw him on CNN last night, and that Trump apologist and former McConnell protege turned into Trump sycophant, Scott Jennings, tried to dance his way around that, and he wasn't any match for Mr. Whipple.
Well, when you have the tapes, you're going to win.
Right,
Okay?
right.
I mean, you
Right.
got the Trump card. You got the age of Spain.
And to her discredit, as I said before, Susie Wiles at one point denied one of the assertions, and Whipple just played the tape, and she said exactly what he wrote, exactly. So,
Of course, and the guy, he did a good job of getting her to tell 11 fucking meetings. 11. But you're going to start seeing more and more of this kind of thing. Everybody, and you know this well as anybody, you've been around as long as anybody, they're all starting to point fingers, and they got 3 years to go.
James, the other thing that Miss Wiles made clear, let me back up for a second. When she said that Trump has the personality of an alcoholic, he acts like an alcoholic, and she knew because her father, the football kicker, Pat Summerall, was an alcoholic. And as you know, I had some good friends who were involved with the National Football League some years ago. He also was a kind of a celebrated sidekick of John Madden, and he apparently was not a very nice man, or he could be a very difficult man. I don't know, sober or drunk. So she understands that. I think she defines that very well. Trump does have the persona of an alcoholic without drinking. And I guess the one thing that I would take issue with, she says he thinks he can do anything, sort of exuding a confidence. I think that hides a great insecurity. I think this guy probably somewhere, again, going beyond my realm of expertise, somehow knows that he's the fake that he is, and he does it with bravado, bluster, lies, etc.
Well, I think she was married one time before. I'd love to know the story of it. If
She was married to Lenny Wiles, who had been a Reagan advance man.
Okay, but he's not okay. I don't know if this is.
I don't know anything
I don't know.
good or bad about
Yeah,
Laddie.
I don't get it. The fact that she when she used the word that Pam Bondi whiffed, okay, that's a sports term. If you didn't grow up in a sports house, you don't use the term whiff.
Right,
Okay,
right,
that's
right.
I mean that just shows you. I wonder if maybe she, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and even Lauren Boebert, spending time with these F-team survivors. I don't know. It's just if we want to play armchair psychiatrist here, maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know, but it clearly affected Green a lot. I mean, these
A
women,
lot, right.
there's real consequence. We may never know, maybe we know, but if I was going to speculate, maybe that also contributed somewhat to this. Just a speculation, nothing more.
And she clearly is she's clearly incredibly influential. She did a good job in the campaign. She does a job in this chaotic, working for this chaotic president. But, all the other guys are boys. I mean, it's an all boys network that she's surrounded by. At some point, that may just wear on you a little bit. But
If you read the interview, I read it not terribly closely, but some of the there's she had no power. I mean, she literally was like, I'm just sitting here. Was I, there's a lot more to know here. That's all I can say. There's a whole lot that we're going to find out, and it's all going to be horrible. It's all going to be bad. I don't know how we get through the next 3 years. I know we're going to win. I think we're going to win. I don't think we can calculate how many House seats we're going to win. I really don't. I mean, I guess there's gravity will keep it to a certain number, but the way these elections are going, it's just stunning.
it is, and it's way far off, but it's quite clear who Miss Wiles' candidate is to succeed Donald Trump. And guess what? It ain't J.D. Vance. She
Well, they
paid.
I can tell you.
I mean, she paints him as the shapeshifter that he is, and a conspiracy theorist, and the one person she's very, very kind to, and everything I've read. And by the way, there's a second part coming out.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Is Marco Rubio. So
Well, she's grew up in Florida politics, but you said something that we hadn't gotten enough attention, and that is we only 50% through. We don't know what's in round two yet. And if you Vanity Fair, so if you're an editor, you're whippling, you're sitting down saying, do we do the bombshell out of the chute, or do we save the best for last? I don't know, because certainly it's going to increase interest in the second part, but it's just I don't know.
Well, let me add to that, James. Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan are working on a book. Maggie Haberman is not used to taking second place. So, and I imagine that as interesting and as revealing as some of the stuff was in this piece, there's a lot more stuff out there. And I wouldn't want to bet against Maggie Haberman and
Madam
Jonathan
Maggie
Swan.
Doesn't set the bar, and I can tell you she's gonna clear it. I promise.
Right. So therefore, the second, Whipple 2 and Maggie and Jonathan 1.0.
Yeah,
man,
we don't know what else.
We may be in for some real treats.
We're gonna be. We're not may. We're gonna be.
Yeah.
I think ain't no may to this. And I tell you, I cannot say it enough. It's over. All we got to do is, and he ain't gonna last 3 years. That's really clear.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't wish anybody to be sick. He's obviously deteriorating in every kind of way, and we're very acutely aware of that, given our age. He has no political power left. No one fears him. How can you've had a lame duck. I mean, so the last 6 months of a second term of a president, the power kind of ebbs away because everybody's looking for the new thing. It's not. He's no one. The only thing he can do is with the Constitution. He can appoint Supreme Court justice, which is, they better hurry up. I think the Democrats are a decided favorite to win the Senate in November. A decided favorite. Not a 55-45, not a 52-48 thing. I would put it at 2-1 right now, and I think it's
Would
going.
you really?
Yeah, I would. How can you
Well,
lose if you just look at the polling and you look at the special election? You're not going to lose these even seats that are states that are R plus 6 or 7. You're going to win those. You just can't, I don't see any evidence all evidence I see, it's the public support has crumbled. Polling evidence, election returns, just watching everybody, and when the power seeps away from you, it's not linear. And it's gone now. These four. I watched this guy Mike Lawler on TV last night. He's kind of an asshole, if you ask me. But he's doing everything he can to escape the fact that he was sitting on that voting for that big, beautiful, stinking shit bill that they passed. It's a disaster for everything. They have no idea. I really want to ask you to comment on this because I think it's a huge story. What's going to happen on this subsidy thing? And then Johnson wouldn't give a vote, and Doom is saying this. Tell us where this is, because I don't
well,
quite know.
well, I think nothing's going to happen, obviously, before the end of the year. And then in January, they may try to come up with something. The Democrats are in absolute command here. I mean, probably substantively, I think substantively, but people don't trust the Republicans on health care. You know, James, there's a reason. They shouldn't trust Republicans on health care. They cut the hell out of Medicaid, they're cutting Medicare, and now they're making sure those subsidies don't go through. So they can come back in January and try something cosmetic. But I watched Rick Scott last night, and I tell you something, that dog ain't going to hunt. It just didn't. And so I think the more the healthcare issue is accentuated, the better it is for Democrats.
If I made the following statement, would you say that this could be substantiated? Mike Johnson is the weakest congressional leader we've had in the United States in the last 50 years.
I have to think about that but there may be some rivals, but he's certainly in that top 2 or 3, no question. And Mike Johnson's success was attributed to one person, Donald Trump. That's when people feared Trump. That's when people thought Trump dominated. That's when people thought Trump
Yes.
set the agenda. You know,
When
and
they passed,
that, as you noted, has changed.
yeah, no, they don't
Right.
care.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
somebody in some deep red, district in Alabama still got to care because Trump could maybe
Yeah.
primary. That's what they're down to. They're
Well,
down, shell back to northern Alabama.
hey, James, with kids and grandkids, how important is protecting yourself and your loved ones online with Webroot?
Oh man, you're kidding me! In this world, and what people can do, and I mean, the easiest thing in the world is spy on somebody online. I mean, people do that from Sri Lanka or something, when you don't protect yourself, it'd be like not, logging your house when you leave. It's pretty
Yeah.
critical, and you're going to get more critical by the day.
Yeah. No, totally. Cybercrime spikes during the holidays. I don't mean to be a fearmonger, but folks out there, it does. But protecting yourself shouldn't be complicated. So give the gift of peace of mind to yourself or a loved one. Webroot is the perfect gift for even the hardest person to shop for you in your life. Starting at less than $20 with our exclusive offer, having your device, identity, and privacy protection covered under one subscription is a no-brainer. Now 60% off. Protect your devices, privacy, and identity this holiday season and into 2026 with 60% off Webroot. Join us and get all in one protection for less than $75 only at webroot.com/warroom. James and I are always targets. They love to pick on old guys, so we wanted the best in the business. Enter Webroot Total Protection. It's an all-in-one product with plan options for individuals of up to 5 devices and families up to 10 users and 10 devices. It has everything, including 24/7 USA-based support, so the 90% plus customer retention rate is no surprise. There's antivirus protection that stops ransomware, malware, and phishing attacks in real time, complete with a firewall and network monitor that blocks malicious websites before you visit them with a web threat shield. Plus, Webroot is 6 times faster than competitors and works on Chrome, Firefox, and Edge with a password manager and even deletes traces of your online activity. Their identity protection is top notch, complete with dark web scanning and rapid credit and financial alerts. They even offer up to $1 million in expense reimbursement for stolen funds and costs due to identity theft. You also can get a VPN that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers and cloud backup for a PC or a Mac. You can also try their Essentials package, which gives you many of the key features of the Total Protection package. You can select 1, 3, or 5 devices, complete with a firewall and network protection, antivirus, lighting, fast scanning, website blocking, and deletion of your online activity. Protect yourself and your family from cybercrime this holiday with 60% off Webroot Total Protection at webroot.com/warroom. That's 60% off for a limited time, but only with our exclusive code at webroot.com/warroom. The link is in our show notes. James, this week was so tragically sad. The slaughter of Jews celebrating Hanukkah in Australia, including a little 10-year-old girl and an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor. And at Brown University, 2 young students with such bright future who were gunned down. Our guest, Dr. James Densley, a founder of the Violence Prevention Project and a leading expert on mass killings. Dr. Densley, first of all, thank you for being with us. And I'm sure you agree that there are unique aspects to most incidences, and also there are some commonalities. We'll talk about these two in just a minute. But mass killings were down last year, but I gather you don't think that's necessarily a trend, that these things can go in cycles.
Yes, again, terrible, gut-wrenching tragedy. And unfortunately, we're in this repetitive cycle with these types of events, which is to say that although they are down in the last year, they've not gone away. And unless you change the underlying social conditions, they will continue to happen. I think what we're seeing here is maybe what you would call a regression to the mean, which is what goes up must come down. We had such an increase in gun violence in the last 3 to 5 years, particularly around the pandemic. It's coming back down to those normal levels. That's a good thing. But it's a question of how much violence are we willing to tolerate? And unfortunately, if you look through history, it's too much. And that's why these tragedies continue to occur.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about that overarching point in a minute, or James will. But the Australian killings, it seems to me, are clearly part of a global anti-Semitism, and in this case, inspired by ISIS terrorists. And frankly, there is a reason for Jews to be scared of other incidents these days, isn't there?
Unfortunately, there is. I mean, if you look at the way in which hate, anti-Semitism seems to be rising globally, the rhetoric around this. And then there's also the copycat phenomena with these types of crimes as well, which is to say that when we see these happen, people can be inspired by them. They study them, they research them, and they follow suit. So we have to be very careful, very vigilant about this. I think what is reassuring to some degree is that we have through history, if you look at the Port Arthur massacre in Australia, they treated that as a policy failure in Australia. And within weeks, they banned certain weapons. They changed laws nationally. They're already talking about what steps they need to take to address these issues in Australia. And so we hope that the lessons can be learned here. But unfortunately, it is part of this broader trend globally.
Yeah, you have written that many of these killers have suicidal tendencies, but you've also said there are signs you can spot in would-be killers. Tell us what some of those signs are.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the mindset of a mass killer because, unlike any other crime, this is the type of event where to be in the mindset to do it, you no longer care if you live or die, because the outcome almost inevitably is that you'll either be shot and killed on the scene, or you will be taking your own life, or you will spend the rest of your life in prison. And so when you think about it through that lens, you then go backward and you say to yourself, how did somebody get to that point to begin with? And it's rooted in that existential crisis of the self. So what are the warning signs that somebody's going through that? Well, it might be that they're doing some end of life planning. They're starting to talk about the end of their life coming soon. They might be taking an unhealthy interest in violence and in weapons. There's going to be some leakage spilling out of them that this is something that they are on a pathway toward. And I think at its core, it's desperation and it's despair. And so the more we can do to pay attention to the people around us, when you see that change in behavior, that they're no longer acting as they used to do, that's the moment where, with some courage and compassion, you might be able to step in and say, something's not right. Can we do something to get upstream of the problem?
James, the Brown case is perplexing as it is awful. We have repeatedly argued that lifting the ban on assault weapons was a huge mistake. I think it ought to be put back in. But the Brown killer used a handgun, and they haven't, as of this taping, they haven't yet found the person of interest. They had a arrest, which was an incorrect one. They had to let him go. From what you've seen and read, is there anything that strikes you that's really telling about the Brown incident?
I mean, the fact that we don't yet know who did it is perhaps the most telling component to this, which is to say that so often, as I mentioned before, the perpetrators die on the scene,
Right.
or they're very quickly apprehended. What is strange about this as well is because so many people perpetrate these crimes for notoriety. They want to be known for this act. In this particular case, you've got a killer that has disappeared. We don't know who they are. That is the most striking thing about this. Now, what I would say is when you look at the history of shootings on college campuses, very similar as well to shootings in K-12 school settings, they tend to be perpetrated by current or former students of that particular school. And so I would imagine that the very first thing that the investigators would be looking at right now is their own internal records of current and former students. The fact that this shooting occurred at 4 p.m. on a Saturday during examination study hall speaks to somebody maybe with some familiarity with the school and also with the routines of the school. And then the fact that they were able to disappear may also speak to the idea that there was some planning and pre-connection with the school involved here. So I think that's perhaps, again, the most telling piece of this. But there's so many uncertainties here, and that's what's so striking. But the frustrating thing, I mean, particularly for folks like yourself, have worked in the political spaces for so long, is I think the issue is these tragedies keep occurring because they don't threaten power or elections or money in a sustained way. And it's this the way that the incentives to change remain weak. And I think we do this, we have these tragedies, we talk about them, and then they keep happening again and again.
James.
So, Prof, I want to isolate the anti-Semitism thing because my family's gathering for the holidays. The fastest growing demographic in my family are Jews. My grandson's dad, they're going to take him to synagogue. I'm sure my daughter will take him to mass, which is totally fine with me. What if the rabbi called and said, how can we make this a safer thing? How do you deal? Because you're not going to stop this anti-Semitism. It looks like it, and it's really then the guy that shot these people up in Australia. Of course, it doesn't do anything but hurt Muslims, which is so stupid. What can they do? What the rabbi calls you or somebody calls you, but we're worried about the safety of the congregation. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is, of course, vigilance, and it's about partnership. So it's about ensuring that that congregation is in regular communication with law enforcement and community partners so that everybody is working from that same playbook. And then in terms of the congregation itself, it's also about knowing who's in your orbit and recognizing those warning signs if they are present. So often when an attack is on a place of worship, or when an attack is against a particular congregation, whether it's against Jewish people or so on, it's by somebody that has an existing connection to that group. Now, the case in Australia, of course, is a little bit different, but usually speaking, there is that existing connection. So it's really about knowing the people who are there. And if people seem out of place, it's trusting the gut instinct. You know, your operational antennae is that something feels off. It probably is off. Now, in terms of the other measures that can be put toward this, there's a sad reality, which is to say that we can't just keep turning our public spaces, our schools, our places of worship into fortresses. There is a limit to how much security apparatus you can put in a particular building or in a particular setting. So a lot of it comes down more to that human connection and in ensuring that that people don't want to be doing this in the first place, and that we're all working together toward that solution.
So I talked a little bit about anti-Semitic, because violence comes in a lot of different categories. Political violence. Okay, when I was a young man, it was bad. I mean, John Kennedy was shot, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm
Yes.
X. Yeah, I mean, it was a rash of is political violence itself. Is it up right now? Is it about the level it's been? Where are we historically in terms of political violence?
That's a great question. And it seems to be in recent years, there has been an increase, particularly in very high profile cases. I think about here in Minnesota, where I live, the case with Melissa Hortman and her husband murdered at home. Terrible tragedy here. We've had several attempted assassinations of the president, Donald Trump. You know, the rhetoric around our politics, I think, doesn't help this situation either. But I think what is really interesting is the modern landscape of threat assessment and management, the work that gets done into trying to prevent school shootings and mass shootings was actually born out of the work that was done after assassination attempts in political figures. So when the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt happened, the Secret Service then took seriously the idea that we have to get better at looking for warning signs, tracking the telltale signs that something is about to happen. That created an entire landscape of research and practice that feeds into now the stuff that we're doing in schools, in communities, in churches. So it's interesting that you mentioned this, because we've got these different forms of violence, but they intersect in these really interesting ways when you think about what prevention looks like. Because there's always those warning signs that after the fact, you Monday morning quarterback it, you go back and you say, why didn't anybody pay attention to this? That's what we've got to be getting more upstream of, as opposed to just downstream after the fact. But I agree with you. I think the landscape for political violence at the moment is really quite frightening. And it feels like something from the past.
Yeah. Just a general comment. Now, turn it back to you and then go down. I was just like a high-end cardiologist, and he was making the point that when people said no one knew, he just dropped dead, there were no signs. There always is some sign. Okay, he had tightening in his chest, or he had something like that. Generally, when you look back on these events, is it your experience that, there were indications that we're going to pick up, that just wasn't some guy that woke up this morning and said, I think I'm going to go shoot up a bunch of kids in a school? They generally are indications.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is one of the common things from our research, that there are these warning signs. I'll give an example. For instance, we did a study where we looked at the social media habits of perpetrators of mass shootings. And there was a lot of examples that I could draw on, but I think the most striking was in the case of those individuals that didn't really have much of a social media presence. So these weren't people that were texting all the time and posting all the time. In the lead up to the event, all of a sudden, They are on social media all the time. They're atting everybody, hashtagging everything. They're screaming out into the void. And then a shooting occurs. Now, in the case of people who were already really active on social media, so they're posting all the time and atting everybody, they went silent. All of a sudden, they just disappeared. And then a shooting occurred. Now, in both of those situations, what I would say is you're looking at a marked change in baseline behavior. The people that are always on social media stop using it, and the people that are not on social media start using it at an incredible rate that you've never seen before. That's a moment where we all step back and say, that's different. That's not what usually occurs. Those are examples of that changing behavior that are those warning signs. Similarly, when you're posting threatening information online, or when in your own life you're retreating from, your own engagement with friends and family, you're starting to show signs of withdrawal, planning for what feels like an inevitable end in your own life. Those are moments where we need to be stepping in and having that courage to intervene. And the overlap between suicide and homicide in these cases is so pronounced that there's a lot we can learn from suicide prevention. Having those difficult conversations, knowing who to report to, getting people connected to services that they need. It's about giving people a reason to live. And if they have a reason to live, they don't do this. And that's so vitally important.
Well, thank you, sir. You're quite illuminating, Prof. Al?
Yeah, look, as frustrating as the experiences on gun control have been, there's every now and then a tiny step, and you can even have awful incidents like we've seen and not much happens. I wonder if the focus instead should be more on no longer shielding the gun manufacturers from liability, even when they engage in really irresponsible and misleading marketing that contributes to this. I mean, couldn't that be a more productive place to go?
I think it's a really interesting point because you mentioned this. We have seen some movement. There's been red flag laws. There's been some bipartisan bills, but the reforms are very incremental and they're carefully designed not to disrupt firearm access at scale. So what it is, it's about managing risk at the margins as opposed to changing the underlying conditions that make these mass shootings possible. And I think the other thing there is what this says about leadership. I think we've confused symbolic leadership with effective leadership here. So you have press conferences and condolences and thoughts and prayers and so on. That's very low risk. The structural change is very high risk. And I think the system at the moment is rewarding the former. So to your point, if you change the economic incentives, if you go after the manufacturers, for instance, it starts to change the playing field. And I feel like you could actually get some traction there, changing it, because at the moment, the system seems to tolerate this sort of violence, right? The reason, if this keeps happening for 25, 30 years, and it's not costing elections, it's effectively priced in to the market. So how
Right.
do you change that? How do you change that? And I think that's a really good point that you're raising. Is then you need to go after a different type of solution.
And it's also hard to do something big when you have the president of the United States, AWOL or worse.
Yes, again, it's leadership, right? You need this to come from a place where of course it's going to be difficult, and of course there's a constitutional right to bear arms in the United States that changes the landscape for this when you compare it to places like Australia or like the UK, where I'm originally from. We had a terrible school massacre in Dunblane in 1996. 16 children and a teacher at a primary school were murdered. But almost immediately, the UK government banned private ownership of handguns. The policy was enacted quickly with cross-party support, and we haven't had a gun go off in school ever since. And I think the difference here is in the UK, they didn't argue about this like it was an inevitability. They truly acted. And so some of that means there's a political cost here. And I think the decision making in the UK, as it was in Australia, has been this idea that the cost benefit and the politically, you couldn't get away with this in those other countries, whereas in the US, they've been able to. And I think that's where that leadership piece comes in.
James, you want to wrap it up with this very, very interesting guest?
Yeah. So, okay, if I being like unfair when I say that Trump's signaling to the January the 6th people that what they did was okay, and then pardoning them, that gave violence or political violence cover that it should never have. And am I unfair in saying Trump has some accounting to do, some explaining to do on this burst of violence we have? Is that on the reason I'm being unfair?
I mean, I don't know how it feeds necessarily into mass shootings, like in a college or a university or somewhere like that. But for things like political violence, I think your point is well taken, which is to say, do we call out political violence for what it is? Do we look at what are the conditions that make it permissible? And if we're just sort of saying that you can march on the Capitol and do the things that were done that day with no consequences whatsoever, and I feel like that's sending the wrong message. So to some degree, I do think that if we're going to turn the temperature down on the political violence, we have to look at events like that as potential catalysts for it, as opposed to just sort of shrugging our shoulders and saying that they're not related. It certainly creates part of the landscape in which this is operating. So, I think there is a sense of there has to be some greater degree of accountability for our words and actions and how they might, in very small cases. I think this is an important piece. The vast majority of us, we operate in this world, we navigate these spaces, and we're doing just fine. But for a very, very small minority of individuals, they can be mobilized, encouraged, and truly feel that this is a solution to their problems. And so we're really worried about that very small element of people who become mobilized to violence because of the words and actions of others. And that's what we've got to do a much better job of avoiding. That's where the copycats come from. That's where the kids online that are studying Columbine and other shootings, who the rest of us look at this stuff and we're completely appalled by it. But a very small minority of people look at this and think, I want to be like that too. I see myself in them. And that's where we've got to be careful with our words and actions. And that plays into political violence too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You've been a terrific guest. You're doing really important work, and we wish you a happy holidays. And I actually hope we don't have you back on the show, Dr. Densley, because we have you on the show when there's a crisis. We wish you the very best. Anyway.
I appreciate it. It's been an honor. Thank you very much.
This is the holiday season. If you want to look good, how perfect is the stylish and affordable clothing at Quince, Mr. Carville?
It's good for any season, and sometimes when you wear these clothes, they're actually really good clothes. All right, understand that these are well made. I'm not a textile expert, but if you look at the stitching, if you look at what they do, it's a very, very well made clothes to buy, and the cost is really, really favorable. I mean, I know inflation's up a big issue, affordability and everything else, and clothing's like anything else. But you'll be surprised at how well priced these things are and how much quality they have.
Yeah, I agree. And when you're faced with cold mornings and the craziness of holiday plans, we all need our wardrobes to effortlessly work for us. We don't have time to make a lot of choices. We just want good stuff. So for us, that's Quince. They make it easy to look sharp, feel good, and find gifts that last. From Mongolian cashmere sweaters to Italian wool coats, Quince pieces are crafted from premium materials and built to hold up without the luxury markup. Quince makes the essentials every guy needs. We were amazed that they have Mongolian cashmere sweaters for only $50, stylish Italian wool coats that look and feel designer, and long-lasting denim and chinos that fit just right. Their outerwear lineup is no joke either. Stay warm with down jackets, wool, top coats, and leather styles built to last. The best part is that each Quince piece is made from premium materials by trusted factories that meet rigorous standards for craftsmanship and ethical production. Quince also cuts out the middlemen and traditional markups so that they can deliver the same quality as luxury brands at a fraction of the price. They have everything you actually want to wear, all built to hold up season after season. The fits are perfect, the fabrics are incredible, and the style and options are unmatched. James looks great in the cashmere sweater, and it's perfect for the cold weather out on his farm. But my Quince favorite is their luxurious stretch wool dress pant. They feel amazing, and they are perfect for getting things done on the hill or attending a holiday party or just reading by the fire in a recliner with style. Check them out and see what your favorite will be. So now is the time. Get your wardrobe sorted and your gift list handled with Quince. Don't wait. Go to quince.com/war room for free shipping on your order and a 365-day returns. We also have good news. Quince is now available in Canada, too. So for our listeners up there, up north, you can get it also. You can get these great deals. That's QUINCE.com/war room for free shipping and 365-day returns. Again, quince.com/war room. The link is in our show notes. All right, now for our outrage of the week, James. These are hard to, but there's so many happening. We talked about so many with Trump. I want to go overseas for this one. When the British agreed to return Hong Kong to China in 1997, Beijing promised that residents in that booming city could keep their political and economic freedoms. They, of course, have reneged on that promise. Repression reigns. And the most egregious case now is Jimmy Lai, a publisher who championed democratic values and freedom, has been convicted on trumped-up charges of conspiracy and collusion. The 78-year-old profile in courage has spent 5 years in isolation and, beset by diabetes and heart problems, will likely die in prison unless someone interferes. When are we going to hear from President Trump about this outrage?
Well, I've been a bunch of Hong Kong, and there's a reason that place is prosperous and popular. I mean, it's just a great city, and of course, the British didn't have much choice, and you knew exactly what the communists in Beijing were going to do. It's sad, and it's really sad that one of the great cities in the world is heading toward, or probably there toward, authoritarianism. And why would Trump be fine with that? I don't think the last thing he worried about is press freedom, I can tell you. For my outrage, I want to go to a column that you wrote, and I think it's worth pondering, and that's about Mondani. All right. So people would say, James, he's a lot better. He's going to keep the police chief. But see, Trump, he did a masterful job. He's really smart. He's got some smart people around him. And I hope the guy succeeds. 8 million people in New York. As you pointed out, one of the first things he did is decide that he was going to primary Dan Goldman. Wait a minute. You're going to primary a sitting Democratic congressman who, by the way, might be one of the 2 or 3 best investigators, lawyers that we have on our side. Right. If you made a prototype of the kind of congressman we're going to need for 27 and 28, it would be Dan Goldman. I don't know what you're thinking, man, but you ain't thinking very much. And you got 50.5% as a Democrat in New York City. Let me point out to you, sir, Mayor-elect, that's not very good. And why don't you try to build on that number and build coalitions out? And they're running because they don't like Dan's views on Palestine or the Middle East or something like that. Then you got garbage to pick up. You got public safety issues. You got streets to repair. You got fire department. You got everything. Stay the shit out of challenging Democratic incumbents who are doing a good job. That is not a good idea when you got 50.5% of the vote. I can tell you, frankly, right up front.
Boy, I feel so strongly about that. And,
Well, you
it's
do, and
stupid to begin with.
I recommend to read your comments. Substack,
Yes, yes.
please
yes.
read. This is one of the most important political columns of the year. All right?
Well, thank you, James. And I
Sure.
think the point that you made, if the Democrats take back the House, which I think is a near certainty, they're not going to be able to do much legislation. You got Trump in the White House. You got, who knows what the Senate will be.
We're going to have
But the one thing they will do will be investigations. And, investigations aren't easy. They're hard. It takes really smart people to do them who understand. And Dan Goldman is one of, as you say, 2 or 3 people who can do it. So you're going to try to kick him out of office, Mr. Mayor? God.
It makes no fucking sense.
No.
It's just irritating. And the whole thing is just massively irritating. And that's all these Justice Democrats, these creeps are, that their whole thing is to take, inner city hardcore plus 30 Democratic congressional seats and run off incumbents as opposed to trying to beat Republicans, which is what they should be doing, but they're not. And that's just the way it is.
Absolutely. Anyway, okay, Mr. Mayor, tend to your problems at home, okay? He's not even a mayor yet. He's 10 days away from being a mayor, 2 weeks away from being the mayor. So anyway, James, you know something? We have terrific listeners. I mean, I'm not saying that because they help pay the bill. They just are really, really smart from all over. The first one is one it's directed right down your alley. Kate in Montgomery, Alabama, says Doug Jones has thrown his hat back in the ring to try to win the Alabama governor's seat. Does he have any chance? And if so, what advice would you give his campaign?
First of all, it's really good to hear side Montgomery. I love Montgomery for one reason. I'm a big fan of 2 things: country music and the civil rights movement. And the fact that Hank Williams' grave is next to the Baptist church and King preached at is too much. Montgomery is good museums there. Yeah, I like Montgomery a lot. So what was the question?
Does Doug Jones have a chance, and what advice would you give him?
Does Doug have a chance to be governor? All right. If Tommy Tuberville, who is the gold standard for stupidity, okay, we're not, and I mean the gold standard, can only be topped by Cindy Hyde Smith, who's next door at Mississippi. If Tuberville is there, I think Doug's got a shot. And I mean, it's a really, it was a unique set of circumstances when he won because he was running against Roy Moore. It was when he ran for re-election and everybody got beat, by more than a little bit. It's a very, very red state. However, if we ever going to succeed in a place like Alabama, it's going to be with a guy like Doug, who is just an outstanding human being. Yeah, he's going to run a hell of a race. And, when you overperforming by 20 points, 25 points every time you turn around, Doug's in the hunt. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I do.
Boy, he'd be a good governor. He really would be.
A great
Next
guy.
question comes from Frank. Frank in Lawrence, Kansas. My dear friend Jerry Seib, got me to go out to Lawrence, Kansas about 15 years ago. And I got to tell you, Allen Fieldhouse is everything they crack it up to be, along with Cameron, the Palestra, and maybe Hinkle Fieldhouse. It is one of the great, great gyms in America. And Lawrence is such a great college town. Frank says, with Trump's approval and power flagging, is a weakened Trump even more dangerous? Oh, boy, Frank, you nailed it. It really is. When he gets threatened, when he gets, when he doesn't have that support of the lemmings the way he has for the first 10 months, he's going to do bad things. And I don't know what they're going to be, but he doesn't believe in the rule of law. He is in it for only one reason, himself. And so I do think he's more dangerous right now today.
Well, of course, you're correct about Lawrence. It's a great town. I guess it's a great college town. It's a great town. Let me tell you right now, mark this down. We have a shot at the Senate seat in Kansas. Oh my God! Oh no, you can't be done. This is it. Okay. look at the last time that Roger Marshall ran, and it was going to be obviously in 2020, and look at the percentage of vote he got compared to what Trump got. Roger Marshall is one of the most unpopular politicians in Kansas. And you take that with enhanced Democratic performance everywhere, all right? You lay it over that Kansas is a very agrarian state, that tariffs are killing them, the immigration stuff is hurting them profoundly. I'm telling you right now, we have a shot at the Kansas Senate seat. Right now, I'm telling you that. And if go look at the 2020 results and look at the differential and look at the enhanced Democratic performance. I don't say this just because I'm a homer. I say this because I think it could actually happen. I really do.
Boy, that would. Then you're talking not a 51 or 52
We're gonna
seats. You're up to 55, 56 of this.
We're going to have 53 Democrats.
Right.
Okay, it's just going to happen.
Right.
It can't not, unless there's some change. But given the political situation right now, given the polling, given actual election results, people just got better strap in because we're going to have a hell of a year. And I think Kansas, and to some extent, I'm not sure Indiana's not going to get within spitting distance. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Dr. Sue in Cumberland, Rhode Island asks, is swapping out Colin Alrad with Jasmine Crockett a good idea? And also, why run Tallarico against Crockett in the primary?
Because Crockett can't win a general and Tallarico can't. If you believe, I do, that the primary purpose of politics is to win the election, particularly at this time, all right? I mean, Crockett is very smart and everything. She says things that just are not going to play. Like any Mexican American that voted for Trump has a slave mentality. That's not very smart to say. That's not very smart, Dr.
Right.
Sue. Then to make fun of Greg Abbott because he has a physical impediment that's not smart. That's just not smart. And I know a lot of people in Rhode Island. I don't think it'd be smart there, but I can tell you, places like Texas, that's not good. So I'm literally for Tallarico. I think it's a great idea that he's running, and I suspect that you might hear from him pretty soon on this show. But that's who I profoundly disagree with you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. She can't win. He could win.
I'm
going to combine two. Yeah. James, I'm going to combine two questions. Jack in Williamsburg, Ohio, who asked, is there any hope for using the 25th Amendment or impeachment after the midterms to get Trump out? And Bill in Pullman, Washington says, if the House flips, perhaps the Senate, what are the chances Trump resigns? Hey, I'm sorry. Other than health, you're going to have him here until 2029. And I think the focus on impeachment, it's just not going to happen. It really is a waste of resource, energy, and time. I other than health, I doubt he'll resign. You got to focus on what we talked about earlier in the show: investigations. That's what 2027 should be all about, and blocking some of his bad initiatives, because this administration has given the word corruption new meaning. And there are so many gold mines out there. And really what's essential, so I think we made points earlier about Dan Goldman and others, what's essential is to pick your spots, because there are so many. And that ought to be the focus on Trump after this next election.
I don't know. I don't agree with you on most things. I think I think he may leave. But health. Again, I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't think the job is not fun anymore, and it's going to get worse and worse because he doesn't have the power. No one gives a shit what he says. That comes with a 37% approval rating. By the way, there's very little evidence it's gone down. He's trying this Hail Mary tonight where he's going to go on TV at 9 o'clock. I don't know who's going to carry it. And he's just going to dig himself in a deeper hole. I think.
Is there a good basketball game on tonight, or a good bowl game, James?
I don't know.
that we
I'm
could?
not or anything, but
We
I
may
was,
have to. We may have to look for one.
but I do. I think he may just, he could pardon himself, but for sure, we think he can. Let Vance pardon him. That's how much. I don't think this guy wants to see. He's not going to want to be president under the conditions that he's serving now, and it's all going to do nothing but get worse, worse.
Yeah. James John in Chicago, Illinois. I want you to tell him: do Democrats need to court MAGA voters to win, or can they win by just satisfying their Democratic constituencies?
Well, I don't think I surely can get MAGA voters, and a lot of people feel like Trump betrayed them. That they did something and think they could, it was a cost of living. It was this. It was that. Yeah, we can break profoundly into the MAGA base, and I think we should. And some of them, they're not all the same. And that's sometimes what people on our side of the equation think. We look at him and they're all saying it, and he's losing 2024 voters he had. So yes, hell yeah, we can win big. We got to go after everybody. Damn right we can.
Yeah, there's hard MAGA and there's soft MAGA.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
not,
sorry,
right.
49% of his MAGA vote was not hard, and that soft MAGA is peeling away, and you can get them.
Absolutely, and good candidates. Let me cannot.
Yep.
I just kind of go on a rant. I hate political Presbyterianism, which I define as it's all predetermined. Okay, you got to get this percent, and that's what it is. No, candidate and candidate quality matter, and how a candidate fits into the general election matters. Are you listening, Texas? All right, it matters. It matters who you run. It matters what their appeal is. It matters what their political skills are. It matters how they connect to the communities they come from. It matters how they articulate their positions. It matters how they deflect attacks. It matters how they can frame an attack. It matters how they can raise money. Candidate quality matters. Sorry.
James, you're so right. Let me give you one great example. In 2018 in Florida, a Bob Graham's daughter was running. She would have won the general election. Instead, the Democrats nominated a left-wing Democrat who ended up having lots of personal problems, who barely lost to DeSantis. If it had gone the other way, just think of all of the trauma and all that we would have avoided.
Gwen would have won. And actually, guys, it just, and then when Jeff Green got in, and it candidates matter, and it just doesn't have. Let me tell you, I keep your eye on Florida governor's race. David Jolly is working his ass. David was a Republican, vehement anti-Trump. He's a hardworking guy. You watch out. And I think he comes from the western part of the state, but watch out. He's going to be a good candidate.
Well, that would be good. Maryland and Hershey, Pennsylvania says, do you think we'll go to war with Venezuela, and what can we do to stop it? No, Maryland, I don't. I think he's just, and actually Susie Wiles, revealed that the whole thing is phony. They're not going after drugs. This is not the big. I mean, he just pardoned a guy who had the Honduran president who had let 40 tons of cocaine into America. So he's not going to stop the drugs thing. That's just a talking point for him. What he wants to do, he's into replacing Maduro. I don't think that necessarily is a bad idea, except I think he's probably going about it illegally. And the last thing in the world he wants to do is send American forces into Venezuela. I mean, that would be, his MAGA base would really start to crumble then.
Yeah, but I don't. I understand it. I'm not. Venezuela is not a particularly big drug exporting company, as I understand it. Country. It's just he's doing this because he doesn't have. This is the only people that can listen to him now are the military. he actually can cause effect. He can say something and then something happens. Politically, if he says something, no one gives a shit about him anymore. And it happened so quickly. He's done. And yes, and when people lose power, they find another place that they have power. And hey, look, I'm the boss of something. He's the boss of the military. I mean, think about that. And I don't think he will, but this situation is very fluid. It's deteriorating by the day. He's trying this bullshit tonight. It's not going to work. And the best he can hope for, he gets boy, if he got some poll, had his approval up by 2 points. One poll. Oh my God, that thing got reported so much. Of course, it really wasn't. It's just 2 points, and all of the new ones come in. He's worse off than he's ever been. He's done. Okay, that's it. He's done. He's crazy. Might do anything.
James, our final question is from Kathy, who's in Southwest Florida. She says, I'm not sure we should tell Mary about this. She says, I keep getting text messages claiming to be from James Carville that urge me to donate to the DSCC. Is that the best organizations for donations? If not, what?
I think the DSCC is fine. And they take them, but they're a transfer point. Okay. They're all, I like giving to individual races too. I mean, sometimes I think the best money you can give is directly to a candidate, but the SEC is fine. It doesn't have high overhead. It gets a lot of money to candidates, and they're judicious as to where to send their money. So I sent them. They sent out shit my name. I said, okay, I'm sending it out, but I'm very comfortable recommending that you send some money to the DSCC. It's a good organization.
And so, Kathy, expect to get more of those texts from James.
I get on the Republican text. Fundraising is a new thing. It's all written by an algorithm. And so the Democratic stuff you get is, do you realize that the healthcare subsidies, and we got people in, addiction treatment, and I get stuff from the Republicans. Patriot, I thought I told you to send $100. You send your money right now, goddammit, or we're going to tell Trump. Oh, we're going to take your name off the rolls. The cultural difference on my cell phone, I write a piece, is how the fundraising appeals to small donors and the parties diverge in big time. Just kind of funny difference,
That's a great piece. Listen,
I never fool with you anymore. I'm gonna tell Trump.
We love those. We just love those questions. We really do. You guys write such terrific questions. If we didn't get to yours this week, please send it in again next week, because picking the 7 or so best is such a hard task.
Yeah, we got some good. We do.
We just have a great group out there, James. So thank you, everybody, and
Mike Johnson invited me to be in his inner circle. If I sent $50, I could be in special top secret speakers circle.
I think you ought to join and go.
Yeah, you go.
Can you see Mike Johnson's face if he has an event and you walk in? Can you just imagine? That's worth the price of admission. Oh my gosh. Guys, listen, come with it next week. Next week, we're going to have our traditional Christmas show with our much better halves, Mary Madeline and Judy Woodruff. So, we'll have people who really know what they're talking about on next week.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. As always, send your questions for us by email to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show at Politicon. Now, following this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you check out the links to our sponsors, Webroot and Quince, in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting them, because when you do, it helps make this podcast happen. Now, to keep up with us, subscribe to Politics War Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And check out our Substack at politicswarroom.com. James and I are constantly adding new content, so go take a look. You can also find other shows you might enjoy in the Politicon YouTube channel or when you search Politicon on your favorite podcast sites. Now remember, please rate the show with a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with another show as we continue our war room planning.